Significant to your success is knowing how effective writers actually create their work for their audiences. This presentation gives you some practical information about the strategies and techniques careful writers use when they work. These procedures are a vital part of what's known as the writing process. This process involves such matters as how writers gather information, transform their ideas into written forms, and how they organize and revise what they've written to make it relevant to their audiences. As you begin your study of writing for the world of work, it might be helpful to identify some notions about what writing is and what writing is not. Writing is a dynamic process. It's not static. It enables you to discover and evaluate your thoughts as you draft and revise. A piece of writing changes as your thoughts and information changes and as you view information and other concepts. Writing takes time. Some people think that revising and polishing are too time-consuming. Poor writing takes more time and more resources. Writing means making a number of judgment calls. And finally, writing grows sometimes in bits and pieces and sometimes in great spurts. It needs many revisions. An early draft is never a final copy. And now, what writing is not. Writing is not a mysterious process, known only to a few. Even if you haven't done much writing before, you can learn it effectively. Writing is also not simply following a magic formula. Successful writing requires hard work and thoughtful effort, not simply following a formula as if you were painting by numbers. Finally, writing is not a complicated task. Just because you put something down on paper or on a screen does not mean that it's pertinent or unchangeable. Writing means reviewing, revising, and rethinking. The writing process we've just discussed is something fluid, not static. Think about it as a back and forth process rather than following a formula. To do this, then that. To move from a blank sheet of paper or a computer screen to a successful piece of writing, you need to follow a process. The parts of the process include researching, planning, drafting, revising, and finally editing. The writing process starts with researching. Before you start to compose any email, memo, letter, report, proposal, or website, you need to do research. Research is critical because it enables you to obtain the right information for your audience. Information must be factually correct and relevant. The world of work is based on conveying information, the logical presentation, and sensible interpretation of facts. Next, planning. At the planning stage in the writing process, your goal is to get something, anything, down on paper or on your screen. For most writers, getting started is the hardest part of the job. But you will feel more comfortable and confident once you begin to see your ideas before your eyes. It's always easier to clarify and criticize something you can see. Getting started is also easier if you've researched your topic well, because then you have something to say and build on. Each part of the process relates to and supports the next. If you've planned carefully, you'll find it easier to start with your first draft. When you draft, you convert the words and phrases from your outline, brainstorm list, or clustered group into paragraphs. During drafting, as elsewhere in the writing process, you will see some overlap as you look over your list and outline and shape your text in your writing product. Don't expect to wind up with a polished, complete version of your letter or report after working only on the first draft. In some cases, you will have to work through many drafts, but each draft should be less rough and more acceptable than the preceding one. Revising. Revision is an essential stage in the writing process. It requires more than giving your work a once-over glance. Do not be tempted to skip the revision stage just because you've written the required number of words or sentences or think that you've done enough. Revision is done after you produce a draft that you think conveys the appropriate message to your audience. The quality of your business document depends on the revisions you make. Revision gives you a second, and third, and fourth, and maybe more chances to get things right for your audience and clarify your purpose in writing to them. Like planning and drafting, revision is not done in one big push. It evolves over time. Allow yourself enough time to do it carefully. Editing. Editing is quality control for your reader. This last stage in the writing process might be compared to detailing an automobile, the preparation a dealer goes through to ready a new car for prospective buyers. Editing is done only after you are completely satisfied that you've said what you need to. When you edit, you will check your work to make sure it's reasonable, reliable, and correct. As you edit, check to make sure your message is clear and concise so that readers will be able to understand it quickly and find it persuasive. The sentences you write and the words and tone you choose play a major role in how your message is received. As with revising, don't skip or rush through the editing process, thinking that once your ideas are down, your work is done. If your work is hard to read and contains mistakes in spelling and punctuation, readers will think that your ideas and your research are also faulty. Edit well. Now let's take a look at the writing process in review. To make sure that all of your researching, planning, drafting, revising, and editing, the writing process at work, are successful, follow these guidelines. 1. Be sure that your document focuses clearly and contently on your audience's needs. That is, it meets their expectations and answers their questions. 2. Verify that all information you have used in your document is correct, accurate, ethical, and relevant. 3. Proofread the final version of your document, paying close attention to spelling, punctuation, formatting, and factual content. 4. Make sure that you send the final revised, edited, and proofread version, not an earlier draft. And finally, 5. Be sure you send the document to the right individual.